The release of this game ended a 20-year friendship, setting off a chain of events that led to its publisher becoming one of the biggest toy and game companies in America. In 1973, they were second only to Mattel. The next year, it all fell apart. Symbolism! For reasons I won't get into, I've been watching game and toy commercials from the 1970s, and they're pretty weird.
Tiny tears. Leave her lying down, and she cries.
You didn't eat your supper, and you spilt your milk, and you didn't pick up your toys. Just wait till your daddy comes home. Are you listening to me? Daisy, how dare you fall asleep while I'm talking to you? Mommy doesn't like to spank you, but sometimes you make Mommy so mad.
That last one is just child abuse.
Hostile territory. And on to the target area. Message delivered. Mission accomplished.
But then I saw this ad for something called SKITTLE Pool.
Want to play? I came to play Wisconsin Skinny. That's me. You a hustler? Nope, salesman.
And I said, oh, I know that voice. That's Tennessee Tuxedo.
I think you'd be too scared to get into a rocket, let alone blast off.
The actor Don Adams is also known as the Smart and Get Smart and the Gadget and Inspector Gadget, but for me, he will always be Tennessee Tuxedo because I was a weird kid and I loved Tennessee Tuxedo.
Blast off!
Gee, Tennessee, how's everything up on the moon?
Never mind, Chumley, never mind.
Salesman, huh? What do you sell? Skittle Pull. Skittle Pull by Aurora. It's a lot of fun.
The name of the game is Skittle Horseshoe. It requires skill and intelligence.
You guys brought me to a bingo game?
This is different, boss. Skittle bingo. You gotta shoot for numbers. You shoot for us, get it?
Who asked?
Un nouveau jeu?
Oui, Skittle Tacto, c'est pourquoi je vous ai fait venir.
Pourquoi moi?
Parce que vous êtes le plus grand joueur du monde de Skittle.
Ah, merci.
What are these games? How many were there? Why is Don Adams on the box? Who made them and why? The designers are uncredited both in the physical game and the database Board Game Geek. So I had a lot of questions, and I started looking, and I did find the answers. This is the story of a company that two guys started in a garage. It's about the wealthy art collector who bought it and then bet everything on a radical new direction. It's about an actor who was never satisfied, and his childhood best friend who saw things no one else could. It's about two inventors, both immigrants, who came to America after the Second World War. It's a story of ambition and ingenuity, of betrayal and the bottom line. Ultimately, it's a story about failure. This is the story of the Aurora Skittle games.
We'd like to show you something new from Aurora Toys, Aurora Toys. Aurora Toys, you're gonna get your joy with Aurora Toys, Aurora Toys.
Brooklyn, just after the war. Abe Shikes and Joe Guillermo both work making jewelry. Abe is a sharp businessman who left Russia in the 1920s. He's outgoing, loud, loves to schmooze and brag, always looking for an angle. Joe is a craftsman and an engineer. Quiet, reserved, he prefers to work a problem rather than work a room. In 1950, these two guys formed the Aurora Plastics Corporation. They're going to make injection molded plastics to order for clients, mostly other people making jewelry, cheap necklaces, bracelets, etc. One day they get a contract to make some plastic coat hangers for a coat manufacturer, and they screw it up. The hangers won't hold the weight of the coat, so the client will not pay for it, and they're out the labor and material costs. Plus, now they have a bunch of janky coat hangers hanging around that they can't sell, as coat hangers. But then they get creative. They tie a string to it, and they add in an arrow with a rubber stopper and sell it as a toy archery set. And it turns out to be a huge hit. And they say, well, wait a minute, why are we doing contract work? If we make this much money making toys on accident, maybe we should try making them on purpose. At this point, they bring in John Cuomo as sales manager, giving him a 10% stake in the company. Cuomo was born in Italy. He's extremely personable, gregarious, and charming. The ideal person for dealing face-to-face with toy retailers and distributors. So now Aurora is in the toy business, and they start making model airplanes. And by making, I mean they straight up steal a couple designs from another company, Hawk. As a deterrent, Hawk starts hiding their company name in the model's rivets in Morse code. So now they have to make their own models instead of stealing them, and they're eager for a way to stand out in the marketplace. Abe Shikes notices that the kits put out by other companies are much too expensive for most kids. That's because they're very large, very accurate, and complicated. They're marketed as being very accurate and complicated and requiring a lot of skill and intellect to put together. Really, it's the same kind of energy as that I promise I'm smart enough to buy Avalon Hill Games mail-in card. And so, Aurora makes kits that are less complicated, less accurate. They're smaller, simpler, easier to put together. And most of all, they're more affordable, like 69 cents instead of $2.75. And it turns out that there's a huge untapped market who doesn't really care about accuracy. They run a tight ship, low overhead, and they do pretty well for themselves. They move to a new factory in West Hempstead, where they will remain until the end of our story. Pretty soon, they make a deal with a British company to distribute Aurora's kits in the UK. This was Playcraft, which mostly put out model railroads and slot cars. Slot cars are electric toy cars that move along a track. They've been around since 1912 in one form or another, often produced by model railroad companies. But they weren't popular because you couldn't play with your cars and your choo-choos together. The cars were bigger than the trains. The most popular scale for model railroads was and is HO, which is 1 to 87 scale. And you couldn't make the cars anywhere near that small because you couldn't get the electric motor that small. This is where Derek Brand enters the story. Born in England in 1926, he served in World War II as a motorcycle dispatch rider. After the war, he came to America to work for a candy factory. Now, that job falls through, and he's moved to the U.S. and doesn't have a job now. He runs into two other British expats, Jack and Kelvin Golland, father and son toy makers. And they ask him, do you know how to make toy models? And he doesn't. He absolutely doesn't. But he says he does, and then he teaches himself how to do it. That's how Derek Brand operates. He teaches himself everything. He teaches himself how to do sculpting, how to do design, electrical engineering. You give him a problem, he teaches himself how to solve it. It's Brand who solves the HO scale problem for slot car motors. He doesn't bother trying to make existing motors smaller. He designs a whole new thing from the ground up, a vibrating motor working on the same principle as a door buzzer. Brand's boss sells this to Playcraft, and Brand shows it off at the 1959 Brighton Toy Fair, where Shikes and Giamarino are in attendance. They were enchanted.
He turns it on, and I couldn't believe something so small could have a motor inside. I picked one up and put it down, and heard, man, it was hot. This guy would wet his fingers and pick up a car. I thought he was just picking them up. But what he was actually doing was cooling them off.
He was quite a guy, that Derek Brand. I liked him a lot. When I first saw him, I said, you've got to come work for me.
It took some doing, but Aurora secured the license from Playcraft for the slot cars, which they released as model motoring. And in a few years, Brand would indeed be hired on at Aurora. He and Giamarino worked together to create a new pancake motor that was more reliable and easier to service than Brand's original. Now, in order for Aurora to get that license, though, they had to make some pretty big promises.
I was scared stiff. We had to guarantee them $500,000 a year for 5 years. We were still a young company.
All three partners agree that to make that kind of money, the obvious play is to sell it as an accessory to HO scale model railroads. That's the biggest segment of the hobby market.
They're only about 2 inches long. That's HO scale. The next size up is 1/32nd scale, much bigger. HO gives you twice the action in half the space.
But one guy saw it differently, and that was Donald William Silverstein, Aurora's VP of Marketing. Born sometime in 1925 or 1926, he was known as Don to his friends and Bill to his colleagues. Raised in Brooklyn, he played minor league baseball and served as a B-17 radio operator in the war. This is, by the way, the only photo I could find of him. He was shot down in March 1944 and was a prisoner of war until the following June. He never flew on a plane again. He's really into sports and car racing. He's very energetic, very passionate. One source describes him as hyperactive. And he thinks marketing slot cars as an add-on for the train nerds is the wrong way to go. They're going to buy it anyway. Instead, it should be framed as its own thing, aimed at a wider market, as a racing toy.
Cobblestone track, bump track, squeeze track, Super Looper.
Now, the problem with aiming at a general audience is Aurora doesn't really have the budget to buy the kind of airtime you need for that push. But Silverstein gets creative. He reaches out to the Today Show, and he races host Dave Garroway, who is a fellow car nut, and just fully converts him. He also makes appearances on The Tonight Show with Jack Paar. None of this footage exists anymore, or else I would be showing it to you. What I can show you is footage of the 3rd annual Ford Aurora Grand National, a yearly championship race sponsored by the Ford Motor Company. This was Silverstein's idea too.
This was a hard sell, because not only did I want to use their name, I wanted $100,000 a year from them.
He got to run around for a bit, but finally got 5 minutes with Lee Iacocca, who I guess is a big-time car business guy? I don't know from cars. And Iacocca loved the idea. And all of this paid off. It set off a slot car craze.
Competitive spirit is as strong in slot racing as it is among the big car drivers. As a result, there are the same thrills and spills.
As the slot cars were taking off, Silverstein identified another pop culture craze on the rise: classic movie monsters. These have been repackaged for television, presented by various horror hosts, and kids just ate them up.
I am your friendly neighborhood vampire from Grave Ghastly.
And Silverstein pitched the idea of creating model kits based on the Universal monsters. Cuomo thought that was a terrible idea, partially because of the licensing fees, but mostly because he felt it was grotesque. Monsters aren't appropriate toys for children. It will give them nightmares and cause psychological damage.
Stories to chill your blood. Tales to run fingers of fear up and down your spine.
But Silverstein does not let it go. He talked to some child psychologists who said horror movies were rad and sick, actually. It gives kids catharsis and a safe place for negative emotions.
Tale of terror.
Finally, Abe Scheich says, okay, fine, we'll do one monster, Frankenstein, so you'll shut up about it. And Frankenstein was a surprise hit. They're producing 8,000 Frankenstein kits a day. Other licensed monsters followed in quick succession, and the money kept rolling in. Now, Silverstein came up with the idea, and Scheich approved it, but of course the success of the line was based on the work of the artists, be they Aurora employees or freelancers.
And the creator is the one that's remembered. I don't know if anyone knows the names of any of the directors of Aurora, but they know the artists, and that's more important as you get older.
The 2010 documentary, The Aurora Monsters, interviews some of the people who actually did the work, like painter James Bama or sculptor Ray Myers.
He's the kind of tool that I did an awful lot of my work with, and it's similar to a Dunnet drill, but it's slightly different shaped at this end.
One obstacle I face with these kind of research projects is that most of the people who were there have passed on, so I can't ask them any questions. But 15 years ago, before that happened, these filmmakers tracked down some of the people who made these things and got them to tell their stories, and I think that's an invaluable act of preservation. It gives these artists an honor that Aurora didn't.
I didn't know the rights to the paintings, the companies did, and I shudder what else they did with those things. But at least I didn't sign them, but someone made a lot of money, but I didn't. I think I did them for about $300 a piece. And but the thing to remember when you're an artist, you did the artwork. The other people made the money's gone, but the artwork remains.
Alongside the slot cars, licensed kits became a huge part of Aurora's business, branching into television and comics. Heck, even some of the slot cars were themselves licensed. These were the work of Derek Brand and his assistant, Andy Janschus, who hired on in 1965. Together, they even created the model cars used for this special effects shot in the Green Hornet TV series. The twin successes of model motoring and the licensed kits made Aurora one of the biggest hobby companies in the world.
Aurora, world's largest manufacturer of hobby products.
In 1966, the company went public on the New York Stock Exchange. Going forward, this small business would have to answer to shareholders. Abe Shikes in particular was exuberant and loved to brag about their success. He once met the head of General Motors in a restaurant and said this:
"Last year, my firm made more cars than GM."
And then he showed him the toy car he always carried in his pocket. But Shikes knew more than anyone that slot cars and monster kits were fads. Fads that, by 1967, were already starting to peter out. If they wanted to continue to grow, he was certain they needed to pivot to toys and board games with wider appeal. In 1966, Derek Brand designed Skittle Bowl. Sort of. When I looked it up on Board Game Geek, it told me Skittle Bowl was invented in 1783, which is, if I'm not mistaken, slightly before 1966. So, short history lesson: Skittles was a lawn game played with 9 pins. This evolved into 9-pin bowling, which in turn evolved into 10-pin bowling. Parallel to this, Table Skittles developed as an English pub game. You've got 9 wooden pins and a ball on a chain. There's a popular version of this called Devil Among the Tailors, which sounds like it should be a song title or the name of a racehorse. Turns out it's both. Brand played this game growing up and wanted to bring it to a wider audience. According to Andy Janschus, who was there for its creation, Derek took an old English pub game and modernized and Americanized it. The pub game was a 9-pin game and was scored like a 9-pin game. Skittle Bowl has 10 pins and is scored like modern bowling. Is that enough to make Skittle Bowl a distinct game that is designed by Derek Brand? How about the physical design of the game? The spacing of the pins, the specific length of the chain, all of which defines the play experience. I think it is, so I reached out to W. Eric Martin on BGG, and he agreed, spinning it off into a separate page.
Within the space of a bridge table, you can have all the excitement of a bowling alley. Skittle Bowl.
Brand's game is a big hit. It will end up being Aurora's bestseller 2 years in a row. Shikes is eager to build on his success, to turn Aurora into a real toy company and shake off the fads and hobby stuff. But Giammarino doesn't agree. We got lucky, that doesn't mean we're going to get lucky again. We should stick to doing models. And it becomes an argument between them that goes on for months. There are shouting matches. One day, to make more floor space to make games, Shikes goes down to the factory and just destroys the molds for some of the model kits. I guess those are discontinued now. It gets so bad that John Cuomo decides he's had enough and he retires. Bill Silverstein leaves, forming an ad agency. And then in 1968, Shikes makes a deal with the other people on the board of directors and forces Giammarino out of the company. It was a shock. Joe was heartbroken, and it seems like he held on to that heartbreak for the rest of his life. Aurora then makes the pivot to toys and games. For this big push, they hire Hanna-Barbera.
Toy
men of the world, your resistance to our pleasurable diversions is useless. Aurora now makes toys. Two gentlemen who are going to assist your merchandising efforts are our employers, Messrs. Hanna and Barbera. Hanna-Barbera knows how to talk to kids better than anybody in the world. And that's why, when Aurora went into the toy business, they came to us. They knew the best way to sell toys would be with animation.
The animation studio creates a teenage counterculture rock band to be Aurora's mascots.
Meet the new generation. They're going to help you sell Aurora toys, right? They sound funny, too. Yeah, that's the sound the kids like, funny.
I'm pretty sure they only appear in this film pitched to retailers.
From Aurora toy. Well, it's rickety, rap, as skippy as it can be. Here comes stick around, wonderful game. Look at it grow from the ground. Paraphernalia is my bill.
Inflatables, yeah. You can make any shape that you want. Use the super sealer machine. Give a turn on the wheel and you make a seal. You make a mean old monster, yeah.
Hateable Inflatables and Rickety Raft didn't exactly land. Sales slumped and the board got nervous. A group of shareholders, led by Revlon executive Charles Diker, see this as an opportunity. In spring of 1969, Giammarino, the wound still fresh, sells his shares to Diker's faction, giving them 11% ownership. Diker and the board then push Shikes into retirement, and Diker becomes the president of the rebranded Aurora Products. There's a few ways Charles Diker is unique among our main characters. Everyone we've met so far has come from the working class. Diker is a wealthy socialite, Harvard-educated, and art collector. He comes from money, and he married into more money. There's actually some scuttlebutt that his father-in-law basically bought Aurora for him. Diker is also unique in that he is still alive. So I emailed to request an interview to ask him about his time at Aurora, and I never got any response. Ah well. He's best known today for the massive collection of indigenous American art he acquired with his wife, Valerie, over the course of the last 50 years.
And I would come down and almost without fail, I would pick at least one, if not two, of the things he had put aside without knowing it. And that was wonderful cement, aesthetic cement, if you will.
It's called glue, Val.
There are questions and criticisms about this collection. Should these rich white people have these objects? How did they get them? Are all of them real? I think how Diker sees art, what he classifies as art and as product, and his relationship to art are all of interest to our story.
Became roommates at business school, and I was this young 21-year-old, and Dick, his parents were great collectors, and he had a great interest in art, and they would send things up to our room, and I would look at these things. I had no knowledge. I took Fine Arts 13 at the college, but I really didn't have any feeling for art. And to live with this through Dick's ownership of it was just, you know, an eye-opening for me. In school, he was beginning to buy pop art and other kinds of modern art, and he was so ahead of his time. And I was looking at what he was doing. I was trying to understand what was he doing. What was he buying this stuff that I had any knowledge of? But anyway, I decided if he was doing it, well, maybe I should do it too. So very often when I can't sleep at night and get up and, you know, get up, I go out in the living room and just sit there and just gaze at these things. I get relaxed because I see things that really mean a lot to me and enrich my soul, and you don't get that when you're in your profession. So it is a great outlet. I mean, you have your profession. Now, if you're in the profession of business, which is what I'm in, you're dealing with things that aren't necessarily spiritual or fulfilling your body, your heart. You're dealing with numbers, You're dealing with tangible objects that you're designing and building and selling.
A lot of Bauman's original art were original oil paintings for the Aurora kits. When they came out in other editions or the square boxes, they were actually repainted, painted over his original oil paintings, and that is shocking that they would take such beautiful paintings and repaint them. It's heartbreaking. It really is.
I have certain talents and I have certain faults. I mean, I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm not good at. And what I'm reasonably good at is to create something new and to innovate on something.
Diker's plan was ambitious. He didn't want to turn Aurora into a toy company. He wanted to turn it into the toy company, dominating the industry. To do that, he would restructure the company, expand production, going from dozens of employees to thousands, and he'd be advertising heavily. These advertisements would not feature the new generation.
Hanna-Barbera knows how to talk to kids better than anybody in the world.
Aurora's products weren't going to be made for kids, but for families. He talked frequently about a wider concept of family games, hobbies, and toys, where parents and kids can compete and play together. Diker is betting everything on this family games idea, and he's betting big. The old Aurora did things as cheaply as possible. Diker once said it was basically being ran like a candy store.
There was almost no management team, no engineering department, no R&D, so we brought in all new people, gave the company a new image and a new marketing approach.
All of this is going to cost oodles and oodles of money. They're going to be operating at a loss, perhaps for years. But that's okay, because if they spend their way to being number one, if they become the first, the only toy and game company people think of, if they have no real competitors, if they've cornered the market, at that point they just have a license to print money. They just have to be patient and get there. Of course, shareholders aren't known for being patient, and it was a slight sales slump which allowed Diker to take control of the company and push out Abe Shikes. He does not want that to happen to him. To remove that risk, and more importantly, to find the capital he needs to fund this expansion, he starts looking for a parent company to sell it to.
Business daddy?
Or should I say, a breakfast daddy? I shouldn't. But at this time, several toy and game manufacturers were owned by large cereal companies. For example, General Mills owned Parker Brothers and Kenner. Quaker Oats had Fisher-Price. The idea behind these purchases was that if they knew how to sell food to kids, they would know how to sell toys. Diker's looking for someone who will be on board with his plan to dominate the industry. Someone who will give him autonomy, give him the resources he needs for aggressive growth. Someone who will weather any speed bumps. And he finds it in Lee Bickmore, the chairman of Nabisco. More like Biscuit Mommy. I'm so sorry. Now, instead of answering the shareholders, Diker only has to worry about Nabisco. And it wasn't like that relationship was going to immediately sour, right? Within 6 months, Nabisco was being picketed for selling Aurora's sadistic pervert toys. The problem was the new Monster Scenes line, in which you could buy a scantily clad victim figure, girl victim, and put her in a torture device. And yeah, that's a weird thing to make for children, and the advertising really leans into it.
The Weird World of Aurora. Put together your own scary scenes with Aurora's fantastic Monster Scenes custom builder kits. We need a girl victim for the experiment. No problem, Doctor. No problem. Keep her quiet. Help! Help! Don't worry, this is New York. No one will help her.
Maybe that's unfair. That's the advertising. Let's look at the actual instructions for the kit.
You know, now that I've gotten her all together, I think I liked her the other way. In pieces. You know what I mean? Yes.
Torture and blood and sex and violence and oh my God, there was we were getting so much bad publicity.
Sadistic toys make violent boys! Sadistic toys make violent boys!
The head of the New York chapter of the National Organization for Women announced she would lead protests. In response, a Nabisco VP said, well, maybe I should put her in a cage.
Aurora was owned by Nabisco, and some women's group actually picketed Aurora's corporate headquarters. Well, that was the last straw for Nabisco.
Nabisco canceled the line and fired most of the creative staff responsible. Surviving the Monster Scenes purge was project manager Andy Yanchis, who has shown up a couple times before in this story. He also worked as a comic book colorist and had several contacts within the industry. That's why Vampirella is hawking those model kits, is also how he met his good friend Dave Cockrum, who designed several model kits for Aurora, as well as the Karate Men in the game Karate Men?
Left-hand button over there. Yeah, that one, see? That's where you can bust a rip, huh? See? Now, the right one here, this is the one where you can bust a face like that and that and that.
I'm going to digress for a minute because this brings up an interesting question. Should legendary comic book artist Dave Cockrum be credited as the artist for Karate Men or as one of its game designers? It's the same question we asked about Derek Brand and Skittle Bowl in a toy-like game like this, where the physical design defines the gameplay. Is that physical design game design? And does it matter that this is clearly a derivative of Rock'em Sock'em Robots?
Action is known as Rock'em Sock'em Robots. The man demonstrating it to me is its creator, Marvin Glass.
That's not correct. I know I'm already in the middle of a digression, but the designer of Rock'em Sock'em is not Marvin Glass, it's Burt Maurer. BGG has it credited to both Maurer and Glass, and those are the names that appear on the patent. Glass has his name on hundreds of toy and game patents and probably didn't invent any of them?
This one game has earned his toy design company, Marvin Glass & Associates, well over $1 million.
MGA was a toy design firm that, at its height, had 100 employees.
Their average salary is around $35,000 or $40,000 a year. Some even make as much as $100,000. But the ideas they come up with bring millions to the company. His firm gets a royalty of 5% of the total sales from the toy company. This could mean hundreds of thousands of dollars.
These people make the games. Glass puts his name on it and makes millions of dollars. He kept his employees under close surveillance and kept files on his enemies in the industry. He was a weird guy.
Iron gate guards the front door. Security is tight here because, as Glass explains it, the ideas worked on inside are worth millions.
In most cases, people who are in business are in it for the profit-making aspect of it. And that's not necessarily an enriching thing of your soul.
Art is everywhere, from nudes to icons. The names of the artists are well known: Chagall, Buffet, Neiman. The dining room, paneled in teak, is hung with Chagall's Jerusalem Windows series. Very beautiful and probably worth a small fortune.
Ownership of it was just, eye-opening for me.
Marvin Glass is probably still the most famous toy designer of the 20th century, despite not designing any of the toys he's famous for.
The money's gone, but the artwork remains. And the creator's the one that's remembered.
Looking up the patent for Karate Men is credited to two inventors. One of them is Dorland Crossman, who had a long career as a mechanical engineer working for Lionel, Mattel, Remco, and Hasbro. The other is Charles Diker.
You sure about that?
After the Monster Scenes debacle, Diker is happy to marginalize the model kits division. Slot cars continued to be funded because he saw that as an area for growth. But the focus of Aurora going forward would be family games, and specifically spin-offs of Skittle Bowl.
The only straw I had was Skittle Bowl, so I seized on that as a line.
Over the course of 4 years, there are 8 games in the Skittle line, games with Skittle in the title. Now, if we expand our definition to include other games that play like Skittle games, we can add Pendulum Pool and Pendulum Curve Bowl.
Good evening. So, Pow, what fiendish contraption have you devised to pit me against this time?
The pendulum. The principal weapon in a game of deadly accuracy I call Pendulum Pool.
Pendulum Pool is the same game as Skittle Pool, except it's played with a pendulum instead of a skittle? What is a skittle anyway? It's a bowling pin. That's why the lawn game was called Skittles. That's why the pub game was Table Skittles. That's why Brand's game is called Skittle Bowl. But none of these sequels have Skittles, except Pendulum Curve Bowl, which doesn't have Skittle in the title. So it's kind of weird that Skittle Pool does not have Skittles. It's just called that to remind you of Skittle Bowl. But it gets weirder because there already was a billiard game called Skittle Pool dating back to the 1800s, which does have Skittles. It actually features heavily in the not very good Italian sex comedy Bye Bye Baby.
When I bought it, they said it belonged to Catherine the Great of Russia. She was a tough player, too. It seems she had her husband murdered on a pool table. Maybe this very one.
It gets weirder. Skittle Pool has a Skittle ball and a cue ball, and between them, they have this stationary mounted ball on a pivot. I think because hitting a ball directly with another ball is going to put someone's eye out. And they call this device a magic cue, like a cue stick. But Skittle Poker has the same device, and they call it a magic cue there as well, even though, last I checked, poker does not involve using a cue stick.
So that gives us 11 titles in the Skittle family, and I found designers for 7 of them.
Keeping in mind, of course, that it's not always clear-cut. In fact, 2 of the games, Skittle Tack-Toe and Skittle Horseshoes, were designed through our old friends Marvin Glass and Associates. Turns out that wasn't a digression, it was thematically and narratively relevant. Structure! And I just want to take a moment to pause and luxuriate in this decision to buy this company, spend what today would be hundreds of millions of dollars, building factories, expanding, ramping up production to make sequels to a pub game.
And what I'm reasonably good at is to create something new and to innovate on something.
They wanted to be the #1 toy and game company, and they're going to do that by adding a ball and a chain to pool and horseshoes and tic-tac-toe.
Innovate.
The thing is, it almost worked. The obvious choice to oversee this new line was Derek Brand, who Diker promoted to head the new R&D department. But Brand didn't stick around for long. He was spending less time making things and more time in meetings and navigating office politics. The new Aurora pit department heads against each other, made them fight for resources. It was described as being like a gladiator's pit where only the strong survived. And this really did not suit the genial, cheerful Brand. And so he left. He was replaced by Walter Moe, who had been with the company since 1968. Now, I couldn't find any photos of Walter Moe. No one talks about him online. I couldn't find any mention of him in contemporary newspapers. Only one name shows up in all the articles about the Skittle games, and that's Charles Diker. There is like zero information about Walter Moe on the internet. The only place I was able to find anything was in the book Aurora Slot Cars by Thomas Graham. Moe was born in Nazi Germany. When he was 7, as the Allies were closing in, he was made to dig ditches and carry supplies for home defense forces. He eventually emigrated to the U.S., working for the Ideal Toy Company.
Ideal toys! They're wonderful toys! They're ideal! Get it?
He has 1 credit on BGG for Toss Across, which he shares with 2 Ideal executives. And if you're wondering, wait, I know Toss Across, why does that need 3 designers? There were probably more. It turns out MGA also had a hand in it.
You never know who's the winner until the very last toss.
When
Abe Shikes pivots towards toys and games in 1968, Moe is hired at Aurora, working under Brand, before replacing him in 1970 as the head of R&D. Stern and direct, Moe thrived in the combative environment, enjoyed working closely with Diker, and demanded results from his team of 18 men, many of whom he handpicked for their creativity and enthusiasm. Now, Moe is listed as the sole inventor on several Aurora patents. The ones that primarily interest us are for Skittle Scoreball and Pendulum Pool. Now, maybe he worked on these alone, maybe he worked with his subordinates, maybe he just got the credit because he was the boss, which isn't to cast any aspersions on his character, but rather to describe the toy and game industry at that time. While we're at it, he shares credit with Michael Myers for Pursuit, and is the only inventor listed for Aurora's popular Monday Night Football game.
You select your offense, and I'll select my defense.
I see.
I knew it. You call a pass play, and my defense intercepted. You've got to use your head.
One of the guys working under Moe was John McNett, who had a long career in toys. In an interview, McNett says he invented, styled, and developed Skittle Poker and Skittle Bingo. I believe styled in this context refers to tooling, physical design, the appearance of the object. McNett also says he handled the styling for Monday Night Football, Pursuit, and a game called Shifty Checkers. So Pursuit was invented by Walter Moe and Michael Myers, so let's add them as designers. But what about John McNett, who was responsible for the physical design of this toyetic game? Is he also a designer? Is he a sculptor? The fact is, a lot of the language we have now to describe the work of making board games doesn't map cleanly onto the way games were made 50 years ago. I'm not sure if the people who made them would recognize these as distinct jobs. McNett also says he worked on Skittle Tac-Toe with Marvin Glass and Associates. Does this mean that he was handed an MGA game and further developed the design? Who at MGA worked on that? We don't know. Speaking of MGA, we do have a patent for Skittle Horseshoes, credited to Marvin Glass and Gordon Barlow. Barlow was an MGA employee who is probably best known for Mousetrap.
Then comes the funniest part of Mousetrap game.
Glass obviously thinks TV advertising was the best thing that ever hit the toy business.
The toy people take advantage of the kids by feeding them all these television ads and creating this desire. Is this kind of an unfair advantage of
Do the automobile people and the cosmetic people and the food people and the detergent people take advantage of the kids they deal with? Does anybody not take advantage of anyone? We don't take advantage of children. We just show a toy in its most romantic and its most beneficial aspect.
To push the Skittle games, Diker wanted sophisticated, expensive TV commercials aimed at families, not children. They would feature a celebrity to make an impact quickly. Don Adams was the stage name of Don Yarmy. Born in New York, he grew up obsessed with movies, and after serving in the Marines during World War II, he tried to make it as an actor and stand-up comic.
I was working in the workshop the other day with an electric drill, and the electric drill wouldn't work. And I said, honey, the electric drill won't work. And she said, change your shoes. So I put on a pair of old white sneakers, and the electric drill still wouldn't work. I said, honey, I changed my shoes, and the electric drill still won't work. And she said, stupid. I said, change the fuse. Who ever heard of making an electric drill work by changing your shoes?
Miss the old days when you first started out scrambling a little bit?
I don't really, when you look back on working strip joints and toilets and nightclubs and everything, it seems like it was fun. You were young then.
Yeah.
You know, I had some experiences. I once played, I was starving to death.
Working the circuit, he became friends with fellow comic Bill Dana.
And I thought, gee, this guy is good. But then he did this impression of William Powell. There's your man, Inspector.
All right, men, I've tried to do everything in my power to help you win this game. I want to apologize about using the poison gas in the first quarter. As you know, the wind was blowing the wrong way. And among other things, we lost our entire cheering section.
I fell in love with that sound. I started writing specifically for that voice and that attitude.
Dana started writing material for Adams. Both made appearances on late-night TV shows. Dana, of Jewish-Hungarian descent, struck gold with his character Jose Jimenez, a hapless Bolivian.
My name, Jose Jimenez. I to Santa Claus. I teach to Santa Claus.
I can't really explain how popular Jose Jimenez was. Imagine if there was a guy doing a quote-unquote funny racist accent. And then a bunch of white people thought it was the funniest thing ever, and they started doing the accent and quoting his catchphrases in their day-to-day lives.
My name, Jose Jimenez.
Wife, very nice. That was Borat.
To be fair to Dana, he did later apologize for the character.
I shelved that character unilaterally. People, especially my managers and the people that I was doing commercials for, were furious. They were furious because what are you doing? What are you doing? You're destroying this whole thing. And I just saw it that it wasn't worth it.
But before then, it got him his own show, running for 3 seasons, and he brought Adams along in the supporting cast.
The water torture. A drop of water on the forehead every minute for 300 gallons. 300 gallons, Mr. Brown, would you believe it?
That's pretty hard to believe.
Would you believe a quart?
This put him under contract with NBC, who cast him in the starring role of Get Smart in 1965. Adams's performance incorporated a number of the catchphrases he and Dana had developed over the previous years.
Course. The old gun and the peg leg trick. That's the second time I've fallen for it this year.
Danger every moment.
And loving it. Missed me by that much. Twice. Would you believe it? 1 minute.
I find that very difficult to believe.
Would you believe 2 minutes?
He accepted a reduced salary in exchange for an ownership stake in the show, and this paid off when it turned out to be a huge hit. After 20 years of struggling, Adams had made it. He was a star. He was, of course, typecast as a buffoon and comedian. His co-star, Barbara Feldon, felt that was unjust.
He was not at all the bumbling idiot. Don was extremely intelligent. He was interested in history. He used to write poetry.
He longed to do dramatic work, to be taken seriously as an actor, to work with named directors.
I've never thought that anything I did was good, including Get Smart. At the time, I was dissatisfied with the shows.
Though they weren't artistically satisfying, Get Smart certainly paid the bills, which was helpful. According to Dana, Adams was a compulsive gambler.
He could be very devoted to his family if you reminded him about it, but Don's whole life was focused around gambling.
The actor Jim Beaver, his son-in-law, described Adams like this.
He was a difficult, prickly man, only peripherally interested in anyone except himself. But I liked him to the extent he allowed anyone to like him. We shared a love for old movies and the Civil War, and while it was almost impossible to have an intimate conversation with him, we never lacked for material to discuss, because we could always talk old movies. He was quite hard on his children and could be selfish and mean beyond what I was used to in any of my other relationships. But I think he loved his family as well as he could. He just didn't have it in him to be very loving.
Oh, that's weird. How you been? I haven't seen you for a while. Oh, I've been fine. That's it, huh? Just spent a few years screwing up my personal life.
I won't get into that.
Okay.
Last time I saw you, just had been married, though, if I remember. One of the...
Yes. Which one was that?
The summer before Get Smart, Adams and Dana were spending some time with Don's best friend. They had grown up together in New York, known each other since he was 6 years old. And that was D.W. Silverstein.
Don Adams and I grew up together in the area around 83rd Street in Manhattan. We've always been best friends. Many times Don was on the verge of going out of show business.
I was starving to death.
The three men decided to start an advertising agency, Adams, Dana, Silverstein, Ads Incorporated. Silverstein left Aurora, who would be the new firm's first client.
I can't think of two more exciting guys to work with from a creative standpoint.
Silverstein ran the business, while Adams and Dana were the creatives, writing, starring, and directing.
Hey, lady, would you mind getting that pumpkin out of my parking space?
Just hold on, buddy. I got mouse troubles.
Adams' work in advertising is slick, funny, and well-paced.
You could do it, though. You'd look great in a Hertz outfit. Besides, we train you to rent Fords and Mercurys, help people out. You might even get to meet a king.
A king? That's hard to believe.
Would you believe a prince?
I don't think so.
How about a salesman from Pittsburgh? Salesman, huh? What do you sell? Skittle pull.
And I thought, okay, that's my answer. Adams was in all of these commercials because he had an ad agency and Aurora was a client. But that's only kinda true. The first of these, the Skittle Pool commercial, was produced by Ads Inc., where it was a huge success, winning a Clio Award. Based on this, the agency got an offer from Ideal. As a result, the Aurora account was moved to Gray, one of the largest ad agencies around. Diker was friends with the agency's president. Diker was eager to maintain continuity. He wanted Adams to still star and direct. Gray assigned Stanley Schulman to the Aurora account. Schulman would write the scripts. Schulman is still alive, so I sent him an email, and he was kind enough to provide some details.
These commercials, if you can find them, are really good with very high production values. They ran as 60-second commercials during Monday Night Football. It was an amazing start for my career, thanks to Don. And Chuck Diker's willingness to give Don carte blanche.
Schulman's first Aurora script was for Skittle Scoreball. According to Schulman's book, A Soldier in the Cola Wars, Adams kept the concept but nixed most of the dialogue. Nonetheless, it won Schulman a Clio.
All of it?
All of it.
You have broken the bank, monsieur.
Skittle Scoreball from Aurora, where fun is the name of the game.
The two men would work more closely on subsequent commercials, with Schulman often working from concepts devised by Adams.
The following year, I wrote about 4 or 5 commercials and did meet Don, who liked my writing, and apparently me. We would meet in Don's bungalow on the Universal lot, sometimes at his house, where we would watch sports in his bedroom.
I-4. That's it. Binging.
The name of the game is bingo.
Change it.
Scuttle bingo by Bango.
It's Skittle Scuttle by Bango.
Who asked you? Scuttle ringo by Bango.
Wrong. It's Skittle Scuttle Bingo.
That's what I said.
That's right, boss.
Who asked you? Scuttle bingo by Bango.
Is that it? You asking me, boss?
Yes, I'm asking you.
That's it.
Who asked you?
What about Bingy Bingy?
I like it. Who asked you?
It's Skittle Bingo by Aurora.
The Skittle Tac-Toe commercial, which is probably the funniest, was shot in the Playboy Mansion. Adams was friendly with Hugh Hefner.
In boîte de crayon bleu.
Pourquoi demander si peu?
Because I only took 1 year of French in high school. Skittle Tac-Toe by Aurora, where fun is the name of the game.
Skittle Horseshoes was shot at Spartacus Square, the set that had been built for the Kubrick film.
Congratulations, Clancy. To the winner goes the hand of my favorite daughter.
How about best 2 out of 3? Skittle Horseshoes by Aurora, where fun is the name of the game.
I've never thought that anything I did was good. I did a 1-minute commercial. That is the only thing of mine I've ever been satisfied with.
I asked Schulman about it. He said, knowing Don, it was probably this Casablanca send-up for shifty checkers.
Get on that plane with Pavlov, you'll be sorry. Oh, maybe not tonight, maybe not tomorrow. But I got a bad feeling about Wednesdays.
Nick, that's beautiful.
I know, I picked it up from a friend of mine.
But Nick...
Don't cry.
I'm not crying.
Then why are your cheeks wet?
Because you're spitting on me.
Oh, well, here's something that might help you forget me.
What is it?
It's a new game from Aurora called Shifty Shackers.
But I can't help but find it sad if this is the one thing he's proud of. Doing a different impression than the one that made him famous. A parody of a film he loved to sell a gimmicky derivative of Checkers.
Say it again, Sam.
The name is Nick. Besides, we don't have time.
Why?
Because this isn't a whole movie, it's just a commercial.
Adams enjoyed a lot of creative freedom with these commercials. He got to play gangsters and gladiators. But as the 70s gave way to the 80s and 90s, people didn't really want Don Adams. They wanted Maxwell Smart.
Chalet is being completely surrounded by 500 Alpine crack troops.
I find that hard to believe.
Would you believe 150 Tyrolean ski troopers?
They wanted the voice and the catchphrases.
I jog 100 miles every day. Would you believe it? 100 miles.
I find that hard to believe.
Would you believe 50?
No.
How about 2 push-ups and a deep breath?
And up until the end of his life, he gave it to them.
You eat danger for breakfast?
Would you believe lunch?
Don't do that. Come on. It doesn't take a secret agent to realize that White Castle has 100% beef hamburgers. Smart value every day. Would you believe a fish sandwich and a regular order of fries for just 99 cents? Missed a dollar by that much. Now I'm eating at White Castle and loving it. Hello?
Smart here. Retired secret agent. Would you believe you can save without switching by dialing 101-5566, then 1, then the number? It's just a puck a call for 15 minutes or less. $1 for 15 minutes, anytime to anywhere in Canada. So get smart. Dial 101-5566. You'll be saving without switching. And loving it.
Skittle Pool is a big hit. During its first year, it outsells Monopoly. Skittle Pool and Skittle Bowl are such strong sellers that Coleco releases Pool and Pins, which is just both those games in one box. And they patent it, which Aurora had neglected to do with either Skittle Bowl or Skittle Pool. So when Walter Moe files the patent for Pendulum Pool, he has to cite the Coleco patent. I think that's very funny. So, Diker's plan is working. They're pumping out sports and gambling games, advertising them heavily, and putting a celebrity on the box. In addition to Don Adams fronting the Skittles line, they release a series of 3 Jimmy the Greek games, and the Flip It series featuring Flip Wilson. Incidentally, the patent for Flip It 21 lists Walter Moe as the inventor, but John McNett claims he invented the game. And there's not really a way for us to sort this out. This is one of those things that we just will never know what the real answer is. In 1972, in terms of sales volume, Aurora is number 2, only trailing behind Milton Bradley.
And we're going after him. Bradley does $45 million, and I think we'll surpass them next year. They're replacing old faddish games with new faddish games.
But this is as close to number 1 as they're going to get.
Missed it by that much.
There are obstacles that they just can't overcome. First, there's the 1973 oil embargo. You can't really make plastic toys and games without oil.
The shortage has been around all year, but has grown quite serious in the last 4 or 5 weeks.
Although Aurora products' sales of toys and games showed an increase for 1973, unsettled market conditions at year-end resulted in sharply reduced sales during the last few weeks of the year. This resulted in an unanticipated operating loss.
So their manufacturing costs just skyrocket. Walter Moe claims to have been involved in some under-the-table deals to get them a supplier, but they're paying through the nose for it. And this coincides with Lee Bickmore leaving Nabisco. He was on board with Diker's plan, but his successor isn't. Wait, why aren't you making money if you're number 2 in sales? And wait a second, is this the same company that got us picketed for their pervert toys? Overnight, Nabisco slashed Diker's budget and demanded profits. But profits did not come.
Aurora sales for 1974 were slightly below expectations. Operating results were unprofitable and approximately equal to last year's performance.
Nabisco slashed further. New releases and new slot car development slows to a crawl.
In 1975, Aurora showed slightly higher sales than 1974, but did not achieve operating profit expectations. Toys and games experienced disappointing sales in the fourth quarter. This resulted in an increased loss in 1975. Organizational changes should enable us to effect improvement.
And by organizational changes, they mean cleaning house. What's left of the model kit division is gone. Slot car team, gone. Walter Moe, gone. Diker, gone. The two of them form a new toy design firm, Diker Moe Associates, and this is where the trail goes cold for Walter Moe. I don't even know if he's alive or not.
During 1977, management initiated action to dispose of Aurora products. As a result, we have established a new and higher level of profitability for Nabisco.
There's another reason this plan was never going to work, and maybe you figured it out already. The Skittle games are bad. The best of them are just dull. Skittle Horseshoes is just horseshoes. It's fine, I guess. Most of them, though, just barely function. We found it almost impossible to hit the blocks hard enough to make any progress in Skittle Tac-Toe. The armature for Skittle Pool is in a fixed position. You're always making shots from one side of the table, and maybe it's just our copy, but the balls naturally roll away from that side of the table, making things even harder. In Skittle Baseball, the metal ball, which you swing towards your opponent, is attached to a magnet, and when they hit the batter button, it yanks up the chain, causing the ball to drop. And that's clever, except it almost never works.
We don't take advantage of children. We just show a toy in its most romantic and its most beneficial aspect.
I think toy companies bring out new products for the sake of bringing out new products, hoping that some are going to take off. We don't do it that way. We bring out fewer products and put big money behind them. Each game is like a new brand.
They're bad ideas executed badly. If you tried one, you probably wouldn't want to try another. I had to because I was researching this video. I bought 6 of them, and each subsequent purchase felt like an act of self-harm. In his book Aurora Slot Cars, Thomas Graham sums it up like this. The enormous tooling and television advertising costs simply could not be recouped, even by high-volume sales that Aurora often enjoyed with smash hit games like Skittle Bowl. However, many Aurora games turned out to be sales flops. Families played with them once, then put them away in the closet. I'm sorry, what closet are you fitting these in? They are so big, even by the standards of games from the 70s. These are unnecessarily large, and I have so many of them now, I have nowhere to put them. Why did I do this video? I'm not going to be able to sell these. Now, there's one more Aurora game I tracked down, and that was Shifty Checkers. I didn't have high expectations. It's checkers with a gimmick. But if Stanley was right, and this commercial was the one piece of work Don Adams was proud of in his life, well, I hoped the game would be decent. It would make it feel less sad. But this was dreadful. The gimmick just turns the game into something shapeless. A big part of the problem is you do the shift after your move, so it could only be done defensively and often just doesn't matter because it's random. It's so dull. I used to think checkers was dull, but then I played Shifty Checkers. And yeah, it turns out if you pump out a bunch of bad dexterity games that you've Frankensteined onto already existing games, it doesn't matter how heavily you advertise them or who you put on the box cover. Eventually, people are going to stop buying them.
And what I'm reasonably good at is to create something new and to innovate on something.
Derek Brand made Skittle Bowl out of love. He grew up playing table Skittles and wanted to share it with a wider audience. I don't feel any love in Skittle Poker. It was made because the boss told you to make Skittle games, and not because he's just really into them. If Rickety Raft had been a hit instead of Skittle Bowl, this video would be about the Rickety series.
You're dealing with numbers. You're dealing with tangible objects that you're designing and building and selling.
Fundamentally, I don't think Diker saw the things Aurora made as art, or as things worthy of respect.
You know, painted over, it's heartbreaking. It really is.
Art for him is a one-of-a-kind thing you see at a museum, or I guess your living room. And the purpose of art is to relax you when you have trouble sleeping.
It's a great outlet for your attentions and for your everyday life.
These games are bad because they weren't made to be games. They were made to be products. And if that's where you start, people can tell.
Castle Hamburger Ranch and 100% U.S. beef cows with 5 holes in them?
Giddy up now for wholesale savings by the sack at White Castle. Get 5 hamburgers for just $1.49 and save even more on sacks of 10 and 24. So move it.
Holy cow, partner.